Hi, my name's Ian Madden and I'm the head coach at CrossFit Solas. And today I'm going to chat with you around how we program for general population at CrossFit Solas. Programming is picking the best components from different disciplines to achieve the best result for who's standing in front of you. With that being said, there are certain elements we believe at Solas that all programs should contain, such as loaded carries, core, stability, agility, coordination, mobility, and functional patterns. While knowledge can help you write a program, it's wisdom and experience that will help you recognize when a program needs to be altered or even torn up if it's not delivering the intended result. A good program should elicit a desired response from the body, whether we're looking for an aerobic or an anaerobic response, or whether we're trying to stimulate central drive through lifting weight. Everything we put on a piece of paper should have an exact and specific reason for that purpose. So, when we look at delivering a gym program, we need to make sure that we're training people in the most effective and safe manner. We also need to make sure that we're covering all of the elements of functional patterns, such as hip hinges and deadlift, squats, lunges, horizontal push, vertical push, horizontal pull, and vertical pull. So where do we start? Should we just do the standard upper-lower split, a push with a pull? Well, that depends. This is where ratios become very important. So what's your posterior to anterior ratio? What's your push to pull ratio? These are a good starting point. Use your bench to your strict pull as a guide, or your squat to your deadlift. But without even looking at these ratios, we make the observation that most people are quad dominant and suffer from ineffective or dormant glutes. We've always used a testing system with our members on entry, and this allows us to identify weak, underactive, or inhibited muscle groups, which in turn then helps us program directly for their needs. This leads us on to kinetic chains and movement planes. So the most commonly heard of is the posterior chain. We have plenty more which need to be trained, so they, as a collective of muscles, can learn to work synergistically and coordinate to produce effective stability and power output. Our lateral chains are often the most overlooked, and these are crucial for stability. Isolation exercises, while they have their place, will not be effective in terms of athleticism. Along with doing global movements that involve multiple kinetic pairs, we must also make sure that we're training in all planes of movement. The planes of movement are sagittal, frontal, and transverse, and we mainly train in a sagittal plane, with most gym movements like running, walking, squatting, bicep curls, all fitting into sagittal plane. Yet in life, we often rotate or go through the transverse plane. The golf swing is performed at a high speed through the transverse plane. And if we don't train this rotation, or anti-rotation as the case may be, it will result in injury. So, unilateral training, bilateral training, one leg or two leg. This is horses for courses. What's your goal in training? What's the risk versus reward? For general population, most that I meet want to look better naked, have more energy, and greater longevity. Again, most people believe that bilateral training is essential. They spend vast amounts of time on force production, giving little or no time to stability or mobility of the joint. On top of large amounts of time spent on force production, we often see people just focus on the weight or the load, rather than how they move the weight or the speed they move the weight at. Heavyweight training is most commonly used to increase neural drive, and while this is very effective, it must also be managed well in phases to ensure it's not overloading the central nervous system. When we already have members with high stress and lack of sleep, this is always something we're cautious of. Remember, load is one element of strength. We have speed strength and strength speed. These are also large parts of the strength process. Which brings us to talking about the power force continuum, with heavy weight on one side and plyometric or body weight movements on the other side. Plyometrics train your muscles to be reactive, and they're also a great way to train fast twitch fibers without lifting heavy loads. So are you a person that jumps high and not quick? Do you need to work on your ground contact time? Or quick and not high, which means you need to work on your force production? Positional strength, or isometrics, again, a hugely overlooked element of strength training. They can be extremely effective in hypertrophy, as well as stability and core training. At Solas, we spend a lot of time using isometrics as a corrective measure, almost a way of remapping the central nervous system to retrain the old patterns that we had and retake good positions. Core and trunk stability are what enforce good quality of movement during the squat and deadlift. This dictates how stable we're going to be during the movements. Your spine without any muscles is nothing but a stack of bones. Without a synchronized collaboration of 29 pairs of muscles that make up our trunk, the weight of our upper body alone will be enough to collapse our spine. Very often we see people trying to improve trunk or core stability through exercises such as sit-ups and crunches, whereas in reality these movements are building isolated muscular strength, not stability. There is a big difference between strength and the ability to stabilize. So strength is the ability to produce force. The harder you can push or pull a weight, the stronger your muscles are. Stability is the ability to resist movement at one part of our body while movement takes place around it. Core stability is the action of the abdominal muscles, along with the muscles of the back, the hip, pelvic girdle, diaphragm, and the surrounding fascia, working together to keep the spine in a safe and stable position while we move the weight. And that's what's important. There's more benefit to training your core to brace against a movement than there is using dynamic core movements. So, mobility in training and flexibility. Flexibility is the amount of movement at a given joint. Mobility is a combination of strength and stability in the joint. So, without strength and stability, we can't have mobility. Mobility becomes more apparent when we're carrying a compound movement, such as a barbell squat. The body is challenged across multiple joints simultaneously. And finally, when we talk about aerobic versus anaerobic training, you just have to think about it this way. Our aerobic system is our system of life, the most important system we have. And it's important to note a couple of things. Firstly, in order to do true anaerobic efforts, you must first have a competent aerobic ability or a competent aerobic system. Secondly, more fat is burned during aerobic exercise. And this is simply the science of heart rate training. It comes down to what fuel substrate your body is working off. Our aerobic system works up to roughly 65 to 70% of our heart rate. Now, I know I'm generalizing here for the sake of an example because each person is unique. But after this heart rate, the fuel substrate starts to become glycogen. In order to require energy or ATP in the absence of oxygen or oxygen debt, we must fuel from glycogen. So if we always train at these very high intensities, this usually leads to us fueling from glycogen rather than fat. There's a lot more to accurately training energy systems, but what I can tell you is if you're always going to go beast mode or as hard as possible, this is not going to be as effective for weight loss or training longevity. The best program in the world only works with consistency and adherence, followed by density, and then we add intensity. A program should fundamentally stimulate, not annihilate. Anybody can write a program that will crush you. Not everybody can write a program that's safe and highly effective.